Taiwan. Good afternoon, I'm Rik Glauert with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has charged a military officer with spying for China. This officer, named Kong, is accused of trying to recruit spies by bribing them with overseas travel. Prosecutors have called for a harsh sentence for Kong. He's charged with violating Taiwan's national security law. Taiwan's defense ministry says it's working to manage the recent spate of spying cases. A Taiwan Army helicopter pilot is accused of working with China. Sources in Taiwan say he planned to defect during exercises held by the Chinese military. Bryn Thomas has more.
This Chinook helicopter is an important part of Taiwan's defense, and one that almost ended up in the hands of China. Its pilot, an officer named Xie, is accused of plotting to defect. A local report claims he was planning to wait until China's military held drills in the seas near Taiwan and then fly his helicopter to meet one of their aircraft carriers. China reportedly offered him and his family tickets to Thailand and around $15 million in exchange for his cooperation. But that never happened. Xie was busted in July, part of a recent crackdown on Chinese spies. Taiwan's defense ministry says they're on top of a problem. But understanding the problem isn't the same as solving it. China views Taiwan as its territory and has not ruled out the use of force to take the country. With this comes efforts to influence Taiwan's military through intimidation, infiltration, and espionage. July's crackdown has led to calls for Taiwanese authorities to do more. In response, the Defense Ministry is tightening its controls and pushing new regulations through government to improve security. But whether these measures will be enough is yet to be seen. Only one thing is certain, and that is that China will continue to try to infiltrate Taiwan's military, and authorities here are going to have to work hard to keep up. Chris Ma, Sam Hui, and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
The Philippines is accusing China of seriously damaging one of its fishing vessels after the Chinese Coast Guard rammed it. Jaime Ocon has this update.
Chinese Coast Guard ships blasting Philippine fishing vessels with water cannons in the South China Sea. One Chinese ship even rammed into a smaller Filipino vessel, causing severe damage, according to the Philippines Coast Guard. These actions are just the latest in a back-and-forth territorial dispute between China and the Philippines in those waters. Officials in Manila, however, say the recent aggression is hitting new heights.
This is a serious escalation on the part of the agents of the People's Republic of China. The use of water cannons numerous times, long-range acoustic devices which caused severe, though temporary, discomfort and incapacitation to some Filipino crew, as well as dangerous and unsafe maneuvers, is completely unacceptable.
The incident happened in the Scarborough Shoal, just over 200 kilometers from the Philippine coast and one of the most contested areas of the South China Sea. Beijing insists that it controls the entirety of the sea under its so-called nine-dashed line claim, which has no legal basis. But in a region which sees more than $3 trillion in economic activity like fishing annually, countries are trying to stake their claims and control as much of the sea as possible. That's why Chinese officials are defending their actions and the use of water cannons.
严重侵犯中方主权，危害中方船只和人员安全。中国海警依据国内法和国际法，对非方船只采取必要措施，操作专业、克制、合理、合法。中国外交部已就此向非方提出严正交涉，表示强烈抗议。
In recent months, China has sent more and more Coast Guard ships to the South China Sea to assert its sovereignty. It's also been focusing on gray zone tactics to try to enforce its claims without triggering a broader conflict.
China wants to keep the gray zone gray, and for them, use of a water cannon as a non-lethal weapon is a gray area, right? And I think what they believe is that this is a way to get their point across without crossing the line of an armed attack against a U.S. treaty ally.
In response, the Philippines has been leaning more on its allies like the US and Japan to push back against China. But analysts are concerned that the use of water cannons will become the norm as Beijing ramps up its efforts.
We are in kind of an escalatory cycle. This is the first time we've seen water cannons used up there and against fisheries vessels, not against Coast Guard or resupply. To see the China Coast Guard water cannoning fisheries vessels is, I think, a new escalation and something that's pretty troubling.
With this dispute escalating, the Philippines has to figure out how to handle the increased aggression from one of the world's largest militaries. Dolphin Chen and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Japan's cabinet could see a shake-up very soon. That's as the ruling Liberal Democratic Party reels from a financial scandal. Prosecutors say party members who broke their fundraising targets got unreported kickbacks. The Asahi Shimbun now reports the kickbacks may amount to more than $3 million, split among dozens of politicians. Among those now facing the axe are the Cabinet Chief Secretary and the Economy Minister. The scandal is a blow to the government of Prime Minister Kishida Fumio, whose cabinet now has an approval rating of just 23%. A draft climate deal at the COP28 summit in Dubai has triggered a backlash.
I definitely sensed many countries not supporting this text because it wasn't ambitious enough. So it's clear that this is only the starting point and that we are not even close to getting a result.
The latest draft makes no mention of a fossil fuel phase-out. Many countries are blaming oil-producing nations like Saudi Arabia and hosts UAE for shifting the focus away from fossil fuels. Taiwan's government has promised $30 million to improve infrastructure on Orchid Island in the wake of a devastating typhoon. Checking in on the rehabilitation, Taiwan Premier Chen Jianren visits the country's outlying Orchid Island, 2 months after a record-breaking typhoon brought widespread devastation to the 5,000 people living here.
小阵台风确实是带来了很大的这个伤害但是呢，我们看到我们的居民呢，大家还是很乐观、很勇敢的来面对这个灾后复原的工作。
Koinu's 200 km/h winds sunk boats, destroyed homes and businesses, knocked out communication networks and brought down power lines, leaving people without electricity for days. More than 100 streetlights here are still out of action. Now, Taiwan's central government has promised $30 million to protect against similar disasters in the future.
那我们预计用2年的时间呢，会把整个兰屿地区的用电全部地下化。
But some residents are skeptical. They faced agonizing delays in importing the materials and manpower needed to rebuild their homes after Koinu. Bad weather often makes the 2-hour ferry ride from the mainland impossible. The government has long promised to upgrade infrastructure, but people here say they haven't always kept their word.
希望中央都能够关心兰屿的一些公共事务，以及包含我们的道路拓宽以及我们的地下化电缆的工作。
In the summer months, hundreds of thousands of tourists flock to Orchid Island, bringing a livelihood to the people on this far-flung part of Taiwan. But at this time of year, as the temperature drops and the wind picks up, visitors stay away. Life is often difficult here, and despite assurances from the national government to help make it easier, the islanders say they've become accustomed to fending for themselves. Taiwan has passed a new law governing the minimum wage. The new law sets up a yearly committee that will base its decision on the Consumer Price Index, though it's also allowed to consider other indicators like GDP. This change is part of the platform put forward by President Tsai Ing-wen during her first term, but was held up over disagreements about the details of the law. Taiwanese display panel maker Innolux is set to axe up to 100 of its workers before the year ends. The company says it's optimizing its operations. Innolux employs around 45,000 people worldwide. The labour cut comes despite Innolux's revenue jumping 7.8% this year. Economists say the layoffs aren't a sign of financial trouble at the company.
AI 的一些发展趋势来看，我们其实生产线使用的人会减少，未来都是朝向这个近零碳排的部分嘛，所以他们必须在做生产线都必须要做一些调整。
Hong Kong artists are finding their space for expression restricted back home. To help them find their voices again, an exhibition in Taipei is displaying their works. Louise Watt went to take a look.
For 36-year-old Hong Konger Rik Glauert, this exhibition in a church in Taipei is a way to keep his city's spirit alive. Now based in Tokyo, Lee founded the advocacy group that's showing these artworks that convey Hong Kongers' feelings and their fears.
The Hong Kong government is essentially trying to remove the voice of Hong Kong people. And we want to encourage artists, writers, and independent creative professionals to keep voicing their support for Hong Kong.
The exhibition includes winners of the first Hong Kong Liberty Art Prize, set up by Lee's organisation to counter what it says are restrictions on artistic freedoms back home. The winner? A digital art piece that evokes violent memories of a mob attack on protesters and passengers on a Hong Kong subway train. Many artists fled Hong Kong after Beijing imposed a national security law that makes it easier to crack down on dissent. That same law has led to prosecutions of former opposition lawmakers and journalists, and publisher Jimmy Lai, who's accused of colluding with foreign forces and faces a life sentence if convicted. And he's a key part of this exhibition in Taipei. The young Hong Konger who sculpted this work doesn't want to appear on camera because she worries what could happen to her family back home if she's revealed as an artist activist. But she says that people see Jimmy Lai as a saint and she wants to remind them of his vulnerability. So with this work, they see his human side and remember his pain and suffering. The exhibition is moving visitors, both Hong Kongers and foreigners.
Hong Kongers, we know everything is gone, and I hope one day we can rebuild it. So we have to let people from the Western world know we are not defeated by the Communist Party. We are just preserving ourselves, our power.
Hong Kong is something that we've never really have a lot of media talking about in our country, and so deeply, so it's good to have the actual point of view of people that are living through this.
Taipei is just the first stop for these works. Organisers plan to exhibit in London and Sydney in 2024, hoping to further raise the voices of Hong Kongers and awareness of their ongoing suffering through their art. Alex Chen and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Endangered black-faced spoonbills have started to arrive in Taiwan on their annual migration. The wading birds fly south from their breeding grounds off the Korean peninsula and winter here in Taiwan. Some of the birds have been tagged to track their migratory habits. One individual, S50, was tagged in 2013 and winters every year in Taiwan. This spoonbill would usually be spotted in Jiayi and Tainan in Taiwan's southwest. This year, it's been spotted in Taidong on the country's east coast. A temple in southern Taiwan could be fined up to $10,000 for causing pollution with firecrackers. The firecrackers were set off during a parade in Kaohsiung. After receiving complaints, the police stopped the event. Smoke from the firecrackers had already covered 2 city blocks. The temple says volunteers cleaned up the debris. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we're going to leave you with this racy footage from the Naked Santa Run charity held in Budapest, Hungary. I'm Rik Glauert. Take care and we'll see you next time.